confirmation that France, 2 wins from 2, are through to the knockout stages. Denmark and Australia still with something to play for, but Peru are eliminated on the bottom of the table. They do, of course, still have that remaining game, but they are out of the competition as it stands. All right, let's get the thoughts of our panel. Well, Liam, look, it really was the two sides of France in this. We had the beautiful flair in the first half, and what was that in the second half?
No, they just disappeared, didn't they, really? And Peru took over, but as we said at half-time, Peru's final ball, or the finish, the shooting, let them down. And France got out of jail a bit because they disappeared in that second half, whereas Pogba had been really influential for a half hour in the first half when France got their goal. Mbappe looked lively, Giroud and Griezmann were combining well together. We didn't see it at all in the second half. And you'd have to blame the midfield a bit of Pogba and Kante, because that's the area where you need to get a grip on the game. But they disappeared, and it's hard to explain. For a half hour, we were saying this is the France that we all thought could show up at this World Cup, and then the second half they disappeared. But as Jim said in commentary, 6 points, they're through. They can maybe rest a few players in the next game, depending on how other things go, and they're okay, but nothing more than that, Jack.
They're going to want to win the group anyway, Richie, you'd imagine. They'll have Denmark in their last game. What are they going to do now? Because do they go back the way that they were playing in the first half, or how do they correct the things that we saw in the second half?
I think it'll be a little bit of Groundhog Day for Deschamps. They'll get praise for the result, but not so much the performance, particularly from their press. I think they conceded control, particularly in midfield in the second half, and just didn't really regain it at all. I don't think Mbappe had little or any influence in the second half. Nothing like he had in the first half. Griezmann was anonymous. I can't remember him doing anything at all. Pogba on the ball, we scarcely saw that in the second half as well. And Kante did what he tried to do, shield the defence, but in terms of impacting the game and the tempo, France just had nothing really in the second half. They, of course, will sit there and go, you know, it's a clean sheet. We've qualified. It's now whether or not we top the group. But up front as well, there was little or no link-up play in that second half. So similar questions, similar challenges for Deschamps. To try and find a balance or a formation or a group of players that can perform to the level that they showed in the second period of that first half over 90 minutes.
Question marks about France. From a Peru point of view, Michael, they had 29 shots on goal in the tournament without scoring it. It's the most in the tournament so far. And a disappointing end for them, given that if they'd have got something out of that Denmark game, they might have had something different today. Yeah,
you've got a certain sympathy for them. You know, I think we'll talk about France obviously dropping off. We have to give, I think, Peru credit as well. Correca made substitutions early at half-time. He brought Farfan on. He dropped Cueva off the left-hand side. He went 4-4-2. And they forced the game. You know, they had nothing to lose. They forced the game and they forced it early, forced France back. But they couldn't create any chances, and some of that's down to good French defending as well. They created opportunities, but from the opportunities they weren't able to create chances. The final ball was poor. The final attempt on goal was poor. Anything shots from outside the box were comfortable enough for Lloris, or they were off target. And in the end, you know, they're a team that has come here. I think we've enjoyed how they've played, but ultimately they've not had enough to progress in the tournament.
All right, we're going to have a look at some of those now, Richie.
I think they had a lot of ball. I don't know what the statistics are. They had a lot of ball in the second half. A lot of the game was played in France's half, so I think Peru will be encouraged by a lot of aspects of their performance. But they were limited to a lot of this, kind of long shots. They couldn't really get in behind the French defence too often. They hit the post with that initial shot a moment ago from Aquino. Carrillo on the right-hand side, he got into some good areas fairly often. The final ball, again, Guerrero and Farfan, when he came on, were fairly static in central areas. There wasn't really that much mobility. Carrillo here again, the shot over the bar. So Peru, I think, will go home, as you said. That's 29 shots with a sense of if only. I think they midfield, getting forward. They dominated a lot of the half, but what they were glaringly lacking was any kind of quality or cutting edge up front. So they'll go home with a lot of these memories, shooting from distance but not really troubling the goalkeeper. And
look, they will have a chance to score a couple of goals. They have a remaining game against Australia, Michael. If they score a goal, okay, it'll change the stats, but for them, they're still going home.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2 minutes to go, Guerrero. It was typified really what they offered in terms of a goal threat. I thought bringing him in at the start was maybe not the right decision. I thought they were better with Farfan starting. They've got some very good technical players. Guerrero was better in the second half, but you know, the final ball just let them down. They didn't get enough men in the box. They only typically had, you know, one of the strikers in the box as well when it went into the wide areas. And, you know, they'll have regrets. The only thing is that they have nothing to play for in the final game, and obviously Australia still have something to play for. Yeah,
of course, that changes the dynamic. You mentioned that a lot of Peru's chances were maybe because the French were sitting quite deep.
Well, I think we saw a total contrast. At half-time we were talking about how we'd like to see France push on, you know, possibly score the second goal. Here we see France, you know, early in the second half, 10 players behind the ball, the highest player, and they still get in. Guerrero still gets in here, but they're a good defensive shape to defend the cross, in fairness to them. Again, Cueva on the other side. But again, look how many French players are back behind the ball. This is Giroud highlighted. He's the most advanced French player on the pitch, and we didn't expect to see this in the second half. But they've loads of players back. Varane and Titi, good defenders. And we didn't see in the second half from France neither of the fullbacks, Hernandez or Havard, getting forward at all. In the first half we saw them, they were joining in, they were getting advanced, and in the second half they were tight and compact as a unit. And what we didn't also see from France, I think, we never saw that back to front to Giroud and any link up at all either, did we, between him and Griezmann?
No. It was a total contrast to the first half. They were on the front foot. In fact, the goal came from Kante, then Pogba pressing Peru into the mistake, and Pogba won the ball and slipped a lovely ball to Giroud, and Mbappe followed in and got the goal. But that was because their midfield was pushed on top of the Peru midfield. But it seemed that the second half, all they were content to do was protect that one-goal lead. And that was a worry watching them, because they're going to come up against better teams than Peru, so you'd have to wonder how they're going to cope. I thought they lost it in midfield. I know Pogba is someone that we talk about all the time, whereas he was very good in the first half, he was as poor in the second half.
Let's take a look at him now.
Yeah, we pick out what he was doing well in the first half. I think this is a shot, Jackie, from distance. Looked strong physically, holding his opponent off, and nearly beat Scalesi with a shot. This is a lovely little ball into Mbappe. I thought Mbappe should have scored there, but he went for a back heel. Now, this was him in the second half. It's careless. We've seen that time and time again. Now, if you're going to get a grip on the game and take the pressure off your team, you've got to keep the ball. Look at that. That's another careless pass, and he has that in his locker. Also, he got booked as well, so he'll have to watch himself. This is where he won that ball for the goal. He was playing high, he was strong, and then Mbappe follows in Giroud's deflected shot to score. It was a total contrast. He was very, very good in the first half and disappeared in the second half. Now, if you get a player we're going to see later on tonight, Modric, he's there for 90 minutes. He's ever present. He can receive the ball, and he keeps the ball, and he keeps his team playing. Whether it's for Real Madrid or for Croatia, Pogba flits in and out of the game.
Is that the most frustrating thing, Richie, about him, though, that we say this about him nearly every single game?
We do talk about him a lot, and he's right in saying he feels like he's the most criticised player around. But I think the frustration with him is because you see it in spurts, you see in moments what he's capable of doing, and then he will play the game for a spell where you just think he's no understanding of the position he's been given. There's an indiscipline to him positionally. I don't remember many times where I've seen him, to use a phrase we use, wrestle control of a game where he dictates the tempo. I just haven't seen him do that often, certainly not for Manchester United. But the good thing, I suppose, that Deschamps has is Pogba in any other squad is probably undroppable. But in this squad, he's got other players. Tolisso can come in, Matuidi can go into central areas, Kante can do that.
He'd be brave to drop him, though.
Well, he did it in the Euros a couple of times.
Yeah.
He's not. Deschamps isn't afraid of dropping the players, and he's got players to come in, which I don't think drop the quality a huge amount either. So, a lot of options that the manager has. But they did the job. They did enough tonight. They just did enough about him. Exactly.
So Mourinho left him out, after paying that amount of money for him.
He's playing his best football at Juventus in a really structured team with Pirlo, where he didn't have as much responsibility. He kind of had a supporting role in that Juventus team, and that's where he came to the fore, really. In this French team, he's 25, but they've got like 4 22-year-olds in the team today. They've got a 19-year-old in the team starting as well. There's more and more responsibility on him as well. The oldest, I think, outfield player they have is 27, or Tweedy at 29. So I think there's a pressure on him. He was voted, I think, the best young player in the last World Cup.
Yeah.
So, 4 years on, are we seeing a different player from what we saw in Brazil? I'm not, he just doesn't seem to have evolved enough.
2 years on, are we seeing a different France then? Because they were obviously beaten in the Euro 2016 final by Portugal as well, Liam. So is it a different France now? OK, you mentioned the new players and whatever, but how much have they changed since they lost that final?
I can't say it is. Obviously, Mbappe's come into their lineup, and he looked, for 20, 25 minutes, he looked a threat tonight. He's very quick, he's very skillful, but then he drifted out of the game, and in the end, he was substituted. So, Are they a much better outfit than they were 2 years ago? I can't say they are. First half, for that 30 minutes, and when Giroud and Griezmann were linking up, they looked dangerous. And when they were playing higher up the field, they retreated in the second half, as Michael pointed out, and they were disappointing. They were disappointing. I couldn't look at them and say they have a team, particularly in that midfield. They have a team that's going to go all the way in this competition.
Where is their biggest weakness, Richie?
I think the biggest challenge the coach has, I can't look at I think Pogba in a central midfield partnership, I think he's weak defensively. I don't look at too many other areas of the pitch and say, if you're playing against him, that there's an area that you would focus on. I think if there's a weakness of full back, they've Mendy and Sidibe to come in, are able replacements. He can change it from a central midfield 2 that he started with today to 3 that he did the other day, to 3 up front, or he can go with Giroud and Griezmann. There's a versatility there in terms of his options. I think the weakness he may have is he may not settle on one. He may not find the one that works most. And off the field and on the field as well with the French squad, you're always looking for balance. You're always looking to get them to play as a team as opposed to perform as a group of individuals, which they are capable of doing as well.
Yeah, we have seen that.